Story 1. A law that should exist is one that seriously addresses digital privacy and data protection. With how much of our lives are online now, it is crucial to have stronger regulations on how companies can use and share our personal information. We need clear, enforceable standards that protect individuals from having their data exploited without sacrificing the benefits of technology. Story 2. We definitely need a law that regulates how much personal data companies can collect from consumers without explicit consent. It's wild how much information is gathered from us just when we browse online or use applications. There should be clear, enforced limits to protect our privacy and ensure our data isn't being used against us or sold without our knowledge. Story 3. Digital ownership needs to be addressed. Everything is a license or a right to access with no actual ownership anymore. This means you can spend hundreds or thousands on something only for the developers to decide to revoke it. This might happen because they've either released a new version they want you to lease or worse, have gone out of business. Story 4. The right for children to not have their pictures uploaded on the internet. There are kids who pretty much have their whole growth documented online because it was uploaded regardless of their consent. Story 5. There should be a law forcing firms to be transparent about how they use your personal information, with explicit opt-in options rather than cunning terms and conditions. Story 6. Private equity firms should not be able to borrow money to buy a company, then burden that company with the debt used to purchase them, and pay themselves back by exploiting all of the company's resources, which eventually drives them out of business. Corporations should not be able to buy single-family housing in order to drive home prices and rental prices up. Story 7. Sort of paradoxical, isn't it? Legislation and areas of law are slow, while technology is lightning fast and dynamic. By the time they address something, it's not even relevant anymore. Story 8. Turns out, having sex with a horse wasn't illegal here in Wyoming until recently. We know this because a guy got caught a few years ago, and there was nothing on the books to charge him with. So, apparently, a modern law in Wyoming should be no sex with horses. Story 9. When a newspaper prints a story that is proved to be untrue, they should be made to dedicate the exact same page number and page space as the original article for their retraction instead of just a tiny two-liner at the bottom of page 26. Story 10. It should be illegal for YouTube and TikTok pranksters to harass random people and shove cameras in their faces, especially people who are at work. There should be an immediate jail sentence. Story 11. The amount of money lobbyists and corporations give to politicians needs to be capped further. Health insurance companies need to be independently audited and punished when they inappropriately deny or delay care. Story 12. A way to combat lies and disinformation on news media and social media. It is disgusting and has an incredibly destructive effect on the country. Other countries have figured out how to do this. We lag way behind, and it is beyond harmful. Story 13. Subscription constructions are only allowed if they can be justified. Does your product require a server that needs to be up? A subscription is a valid option. You publish a magazine. Valid. Not valid. Pushing cloud storage so you can force a subscription model for your normally offline product. Cloud storage should be optional in this case. And yes, a subscription because it requires servers. Bug fixing a product that should be working. Sorry, no. Yes, I know that you can't solve everything up front, but you should put that effort into the price. Definitely not valid. Car seat heating. Story 14. No gambling in video games that minors can buy, such as loot boxes and slot machines. We don't let kids into casinos, but you encourage them to put money into a machine at home to buy a chance at rewards. It seems a way to get a bunch of kids to become gambling addicts before they even get old enough to work. They don't even understand all the shiny rewards might be lost forever if the game stops being supported by the developers. Story 15. Not exactly a law, but a regulation. The old headlight regulations for cars do not actually work anymore. They only apply to the old-style headlights, so the modern ones are basically wide open to whatever the manufacturers feel like doing. That is why everyone is blinded by oncoming traffic these days. Story 16. A law to regulate subscriptions and one to address software controlling hardware so a subscription is not necessary to enable hardware capabilities. For example, heated seats in BMW being disabled until a subscription is detected. Story 17. The top earner of a company is capped at 20 times the annual salary of the lowest paid worker, including any bonuses. The lowest paid worker makes $20,000 per year. The chief executive officer makes no more than $400,000. The chief executive officer wants $2 million. They have to pay every worker $100,000 or more. Story 18. Telecommunications companies should be required to display the accurate phone number and identity of callers without spoofing. We have all surrendered and quit answering our phones when random numbers call now, and that is sad. Story 19. A lot of people in this thread are way too eager to give governments excessive authority as long as the law targets groups or individuals they dislike. Story 20. A cap on wealth. After $1 billion, you get a trophy and the rest of your income goes to taxes and infrastructure. There's nothing you can't do with a cool billion each year. Story 21. United States. Retirement ages for politicians. There are 350 million people in this country. Do not tell me the only people qualified are a small handful of 80-year-olds. Story 22. Any company associated with healthcare must be nonprofit, with very strong caps on what people running those companies can be paid. Lots of the bad behaviors and negatives about America's healthcare system would either be solved outright or would improve greatly in relatively short time. Story 23. Either ban auto-recurring subscriptions or force companies to make it incredibly easy for users to cancel and get notifications every month before they are charged. Story 24. You should not be able to upload footage of non-consenting strangers even if they were in public unless you have a safety concern like you think they have committed or are committing a crime, but even then, it should really only be uploaded to authorities in that situation. They were clearly not the subject of your recording. For example, if you upload a video of your friends or family and someone happens to walk by in the background, and nobody even addresses or aims the camera at the person, courts will ignore that. This basically just reduces harmful or rude individuals disrupting situations for views or making fun of someone and having them go viral, because the internet is a far larger place than the public. People do not go out into public around thousands of people or fewer with the expectation of being seen by potentially millions online. Private, public, and online are three different worlds in terms of exposure and should be treated as such by the law. Story 25. Absolutely ban microtransactions in online games. No loot boxes, no purchasing in-game currency with real money, no paying to continue levels, nothing. Story 26. Social media and child exploitation. Someone mentioned it already, but there needs to be more regulation regarding parents or family members uploading content that heavily involves or surrounds kids, like the family content we see on TikTok and Instagram. It doesn't feel fair to the kids to be constantly on camera, especially when most of the time, they don't even have the capacity to consent. A number of these kids who have grown up have come forward to say how badly they were treated behind the scenes just for the sake of creating content. I also don't mean that posting a picture of your kid on your Facebook every once in a while is wrong. I mean consistently posting them for the sake of views or money. Story 27. Make it illegal for politicians to publicly lie. Each time a politician lies, it will add some points to his or her lie history. The bigger the lie, the more points. Once you hit a certain threshold, the person will be sent out of politics forever. It doesn't matter what position you were holding. Low-level politician or president. Same consequences. Story 28. Private money should be illegal in politics. All political campaigns should be publicly funded. Lobbying should be illegal unless it is done publicly in front of cameras and broadcast unedited online. It should be illegal to knowingly lie to the public when you are a trusted source of information or someone in a position of power. It should be illegal to cause unnecessary pain to animals. It should be illegal to pay the top earner in a company more than 5 times what the lowest earner makes. Story 29. False claims by politicians should be punishable. How come some people just straight up deny science or make things up in front of millions of people and get away with it? It should be illegal, in my opinion. Story 30. How about a law that makes companies clearly label when artificial intelligence is used in customer service or creative content? Feels like we should know when we are talking to a bot. Story 31. The brightness of modern headlights is an absolute danger, in my opinion. When they're dipped, they're just as bad as when people in older cars have the full beam on, and yet they're perfectly legal. Story 32. AI copyright law and image rights. Companies should be forced to provide the source for their training samples used to train their artificial intelligence and pay rights holders or withdraw their work if asked. Any AI image of you should be your property by default. And I'm talking about black and white laws, no judgment needed. You made a video of Will Smith eating pasta? Are you Will Smith? No? Pay a fine. You generated a picture of your nephew in the style of Studio Ghibli using Software X? Does Software X train their AI with Studio Ghibli's illustrations? Yes? Pay a fine. Story 33. A law that regulates the volume of commercials in radio, television, and streaming. It's frustrating that we constantly have to turn the volume up and down because these ads scream in our faces at maximum volume. Story 34. A law should be introduced to stop companies, including shops, from overcharging their customers. During the pandemic, the prices of everything increased, but they never went down again. They use events like wars in other countries to keep prices artificially high. There doesn't seem to be enough being done to stop companies from doing this. Story 35. No modern cars are allowed to have touch screens for certain settings like climate control, radio, etc. If it's too dangerous to use your phone at the wheel, why is having a huge tablet in the middle of the car not dangerous? Story 36. A law ensures executives at companies are held responsible for their company's actions. Mandatory criminal sentences for executives occur when a company is caught with criminal behavior. The system of corporate fines is ridiculous. It creates noticeable headlines, but the people paying those fines are actually the consumers, either through insurance added as a cost to products being sold or by institutional shareholders. This sounds anonymous but is actually the money in pension funds, mostly belonging to consumers. So essentially, consumers are exploited, and when there is follow-up, they end up indirectly paying most of the fine in many situations. It is ridiculous. Executives and decision-makers need to be held accountable in their personal capacity. Whenever there is an announcement of a settlement without acknowledgement of wrongdoing, it essentially means people disregard the interests of the ordinary person. Of course, there are exceptions to the above situation, such as private companies, but it is not the norm. Story 37. Whatever kind of law we need to stop parents from exploiting their kids on social media. Or at least a law that forces them to put profits in a trust for when they are adults. We have all sorts of labor laws around when and for how long child actors can work. But there is nothing for social media, even though we know a lot of those kids never get a break. Story 38. A law heavily restricting usury. So many people have come to rely on high-interest debt to live and are trapped by it. Meanwhile, banks and other lenders are making exorbitant profits. Story 39. How to fix insurance companies' exploitation of people. This applies to all sorts of insurance. Health, homeowners, fire, flood, auto. If a customer has made all their payments but the insurance company decides to drop coverage, the insurance company must continually cover the customer for a period equal to half the time the customer has paid thus far. So if you have had homeowners insurance for 10 years and the insurance company decides to drop you because they think it's likely a wildfire will burn down your house within the next couple of years, your policy remains in effect for 5 more years, and you don't pay a dime. The point of the law, though, is more so to deter insurance companies from dropping their customers. It's more profitable for them to just continue providing coverage indefinitely and continue collecting payments and risk having to pay out when something happens. Story 40. You need to be qualified to drive a motor vehicle and be able to prove that with paperwork, but you don't need anything in order to bring a human being into this world. You really should need at least some basic understanding of how to properly raise a child and be at least financially prepared before just going ahead and doing it. Story 41. Zero tolerance on intoxicated driving. First offense. License is suspended for a full year. Second offense. License is fully suspended. If caught during the suspension, you will go to prison. and the vehicle will be impounded and potentially destroyed. Story 42. Copyright and privacy rules on artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence steals data from non-consenting individuals and artists. Let's not forget deepfake technology. Those businesses, including everyone involved, should be incarcerated, especially when it's used for malicious reasons or profit. Artificial intelligence memes are okay and funny, but everything else should be regulated. Story 43. If you are a member of Congress and the budget is not balanced, you receive one strike against you. If it happens again, you are no longer allowed to run for Congress. Story 44. Any law with a fine as a penalty should scale with the income or net worth of the person who has to pay the fine. A $50 parking ticket to someone with a $40,000 salary is a lot more than for someone who makes $300,000 per year. Story 45. Using artificial intelligence to fully replace human jobs. We really need to get on top of proper governance of artificial intelligence in society before we have a crisis. It's moving very fast.